It's showtime.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
Washington is fundamentally corrupt. There are more words in the IRS code than there are in the Bible.
Made in America, heard around the world. You're listening to Blunt Force Truth. I'm Chuck Woolery, along with my co-host Mark Young. And Kamala Harris is saying we're the wealthiest nation in the world, so we should have free everything. The only problem is, Mark, nobody ever asks these Democrats why we're the wealthiest nation in the world. These socialist Democrats.
It's because we don't have free everything.
It's because we're capitalists.
You know what's really funny, Chuck? These people, follow with me here. They want free everything, right?
Well, they promise free everything.
These are people who are socialist. The godfather of socialism is Karl Marx, right?
Right.
Karl Marx said, those who do not work are less than vermin.
Yeah, so they never tell the truth. I mean, it's a walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction, taking every wrong direction on their lonely way back home. Thank you, Chris Christopherson, back in the 70s or 60s.
And Lenin used to quote the Bible saying, those who don't work shall not eat.
Mm-hmm. Same thing John Smith said to everybody in Virginia, except they all worked. They went back to work.
But my point is, not that I'm a fan of Karl Marx, because I am not by any stretch of the imagination, but these people can't even get socialism correct.
Well, they say that the problem with socialism is no one's ever gotten it right, and so they have the answers to it. Naturally, they don't, but, you know.
Well, we know the real problem with socialism, which is Margaret Thatcher's comment, which is the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money.
Well, you know, the question is, no one ever challenges them to say why we're the greatest country in the world and why we are the wealthiest country in the world. And the reason we are is because we're capitalists. We're not socialists. That's the answer. But no one ever challenges the left to answer that question. I would love to hear what they had to say. I'm sure it would be far different than what I just said.
Well, Chuck, on today's show, we're going to reveal a lot of the inside scoop about Roger Stone and the Roger Stone case and how Roger Stone will win his case.
You know, it's going to be interesting to find out who Roger Stone is. I don't think a lot of people out there really, other than a guy who comes on television occasionally, he bloviates and he, you know, talks big and says wild things and comes on Fox and different, you know, who is he? Where did he come from and what does he do? So anyway, we need to find that out.
We're going to find that stuff out, and we have Michael Guy with us, and I'm going to explain to people who Michael Guy is a little bit later when we bring him in. Right now, Chuck, our trusty engineer and producer, Rusty Humphreys, broadcasting legend, is currently down at the Mexican border in Tijuana.
Yeah.
And is going to do a live report from us because we do know that people are trying to sneak into the USA, and Rusty is down to reporting on it. So, Rusty, can you give us that report now?
Now everybody has this notion, come to the USA. Don't you worry about money, stupid Americans pay. Yeah, they'll pay for your health care, kids' education too. Just sneak across the border and they'll take care of you. Well, they're crossing from Tijuana and California's line, and up in Vancouver nobody seems to mind. In containers from China, yeah, you can stow away, 'cause everybody is sneaking into the USA. Way down in Guadalajara and from Pakistan, tell your friends you're leaving, then stuff them in your van. They're coming from Afghanistan through San Francisco Bay. Everybody is sneaking into the USA. Well, they're coming from the Galilee USA. Into the USA. Everybody is sneaking into the USA. Everybody is sneaking into the...
Yeah, really. It's reporting from the border.
It was a catchy tune, though.
It is a catchy tune, yeah, from the 50s, I believe.
Well, Chuck, if you look down on the screen there, you will see none other than Michael Guy coming to us.
Michael Guy, yay! Nice to have you, Michael.
He is coming to us from his hidden underground bunker and music center.
There he is, Michael Guy, ladies and gentlemen.
So Michael, this is an interesting thing because Michael is an information and a technology guru and a internet security expert, but he is also, Chuck, an actual rock star.
So you're saying that we have two geniuses and a doofus on this show. Perfect.
But we're not going to tell anybody which one's which.
Yeah, right. It's pretty obvious, I think.
So funny.
So Michael actually is a real live rock star. He was the guitarist in House of Lords. You were the guitarist for Ronnie James Dio.
I got a chance to play with the man. He made me a bologna sandwich or two.
So yeah. We see all the guitars lined up in the back there. Of course, if Chuck was in his house, he has guitars all hanging on the walls also.
Difference is he can play them, I can't.
Well, I've heard you play guitar, but I will tell you Michael is a better guitar player, though. I have to admit that.
Everyone's a better guitar player than I am.
He's a better guitar player than I am also. I mean, he's better than all of us. So Michael, we're going to talk about Roger Stone. Let me set the stage here for a minute, folks. So Roger Stone was arrested, as most of you know, in a pre-dawn raid where it took 29 SWAT-dressed agents with guns drawn to go in and raid the home of a 66-year-old man who does not own a firearm, has a deaf wife, and a 5-pound dog. Did I get that correct?
That's correct.
You know, the wild thing about it is, I've watched this, Michael. Everybody comes on television and they say, well, this is just normal procedure. This is what we do. It's like, really?
No, it's not normal procedure.
But that's what everyone's saying.
Chuck, I used to go serve warrants. I'm going to tell you this. Two of us we'd send 2 cops to go serve a warrant on picking somebody up on a murder charge.
Yeah, but this is the FBI.
Yeah, we don't care when they find the dog poop in the protocol. It should be removed and cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And CNN, because CNN is known for great investigative journalism, CNN just happened to be located outside of his house.
Isn't that something?
So first thing I want to explain this to people. If you want to follow the Mueller investigation from here on out, if you want to know who is Mueller going to arrest next, all you need to do is follow CNN's camera crews and you'll know.
Exactly.
Because they'll be there before the FBI show up.
Here's the deal. This is the final firewall. This is what I feel, and this is what I know from a computer perspective, from what I do. And I believe that they're going to put him on trial, and I've read the indictment. I've had several of my, I have a lot of Harvard attorneys that I consult for, And last week I had the distinct pleasure of facing down F. Lee Bailey for 2 hours. It was on the bucket list. I'll tell you what, I was on a big screen at the end of the conference table, and he was sitting there in his classic baritone voice. And you keep in mind, I read his book when I was 11 years old, and he's lifelong hero. Anyways, they had a software system, and I was in there for due diligence, and he said, "Michael's a genius," And I was like, "Can I?" And my wife, we have it on tape. I'll cherish it. I'll never watch that tape again. But anyways, he signed some pictures for me and he put his number on the back. And the lawyers that I work for, they go, he's mine. So I feel validated that F. Lee Bailey. Oh, and he said at the end of the meeting, he said, I feel I must exit the room or Michael will vaporize me with a button, you know. So it really, really, really cool. And also this week in the Michael news, we flew to Phoenix for Down syndrome. It's Gigi's Playhouse, and Bret Michaels was playing. I used to play football with him, you know, not on an official team, but him and a couple other guys and me we'd go to LA Valley College and hop the fence, you know. And he was dating a Playboy playmate at the time, and she had cheated and tied the flags around her waist. So I clotheslined her anyways. But anyways, yeah. So anyways, this Roger Stone thing. Look, guys, Roger Stone it goes all the way back to Reagan, okay? Nixon, Reagan, one of the Bushes. This guy gets presidents elected. He's served our country for decades. He's the final firewall. And this is political landscaping only. I don't believe special counsel intends or even cares about winning the trial because it's a shaky case. If you read, and this goes back to our very first broadcast, you know, the whole world's arguing and engaged in some type of circular reporting of that so popular show, you know, and I get guys calling me and asking me things, and then it ends up on their show. So when we don't care, as long as the truth gets out there. But anyways, the bottom line is so Roger is the reelection of Trump. He has a lot to do with it. He's the guy that coined the phrase "Make America Great Again." That's who invented it. And if you watch the movie Get Me, Roger Stone, you'll see that. I mean, he's probably the most brilliant political architect of all time. Okay.
So as part of the motivation to knock Roger Stone out, then, is to take away Trump's re-election staff?
No. Here's what I believe, and we've always been right here. When we get together, we put months of research into each show, right? And here's what's going to happen. I believe they just need to change the weather. So as they manufacture the news cycle, and it's like Roger this, and, you know, like the downward spiral of Manafort, right? They're going to get up there. They don't care if they win the trial or not, but that's when they're going to slide impeachment in. You heard it here first. And they're going to, of course, they'll be held back in the Senate, but they're going to do it. They're going to, this will be the retaliation for Clinton, and they'll get their big day and they'll be batted down, but they'll run around calling it a victory, right? And anyways, Roger Stone, if you have MAGA stamped on your social profile. Now, we're doing a funding project right now, okay? Michael Caputo, his good friend, I work for him, you know, and I work for Trump's lawyer and a lot of other things. But some I can talk about, some I can't. But I'm right in there, and my information, I don't, you know, it's good. So bottom line is they're going to try to impeach Trump. So here's what we do. You have to realize who Roger Stone is. He is the guy who coined "Make America Great Again." So you see these guys up on Twitter and they have 1 million followers, and we hit them up and they're like, hey, just like Chuck said, who the hell is Roger Stone? And I'm like, we have him stamped all over your profile and your passion, you know? So we got to stand up for him. We've done a GoFundMe. It's been quite successful. In 3 days, we raised, what is it, $70,000 so far. And, you know, he's going to end up spending like $2 million on his defense. And so
they said something like $100,000 a month.
Well, it's the goal on our first one, which we've almost reached. And it's just through getting the word out there. And he was on Tucker last night. Caputo was pushing the page, you know.
Yeah, I saw him.
And and he's just done so great. And now Michael Caputo is Roger's very best friend. But it's funny, Kelly, who you met earlier, Kelly is right in the middle of Roger's GoFundMe page, and I was kind of tickled about that. Pretty Kelly, right? But anyways, we need to stand behind him. If you want to fight the battle, people are tweeting and posting funny Hillary memes and all this stuff. But this is war. This is digital war, and it's support Roger war and all kinds of things. But if you want to, if we're going to win this thing, now is the time. You got to stand and say no more and put a firewall up for Roger. So I've written and I've submitted to you, Mark, something I'm sharing with their team, which is from a computer guy, an InfoSec guy, and computer security guy's perspective, how he will win that case from the cyber arm of it, right?
Well, first walk us through some of the work you did. So people understand you've been working with Roger Stone and on Roger Stone's team.
With Michael.
With Michael Caputo.
Yeah, there's a big thing going on right now. Nobody can talk to Roger. I mean, think about it. If he sneezes, they're going to add a charge. So all these Roger Stone advocates and evangelists, no one gets to talk to Roger right now. This is not going to happen. I don't expect it to happen for months and months. But I'll be submitting my report, and it's some really good stuff. But I want to go through it step by step.
And by the way, I want to say this. Ahead, I read Mueller's complaint, the actual complaint, and the 7 crimes that they're charging Roger Stone with. Like, one of the crimes is, did you ever send an email to so-and-so about X?
Jerome Corsi.
And Roger's answer was, I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Right.
That was his testimony. I don't think so. I'm not sure, or I can't be positive. It was something like that. And they're saying that's a count. That's a lie. You lied to federal investigators when you said, I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
When the whole world was saying, we've been attacked by Russia, and the 3 of us were on the air saying, this is not even close. This is a hoax. And you'll see the president came in. Kelly, how many letters would you say we've received? I wanted to share this with you. Since I did that first show with you guys, I have received over 2,000 emails from mostly conservative women across the country. It's crazy. And my wife, being the great girls that she is, she saved every single one of them we'd like to share with you guys. But you wouldn't believe this, is you guys made it easy for me to understand. I love the show, and wow, just on and on and on about thank you. So people go right to my Twitter page and they paste them in, and Kelly saves them. So people are out there listening, but here's the deal. You have to know first that in a nutshell, in a fortune cookie, okay, Roger made inquiry about, this is what's alleged. Roger made inquiry into what was in the emails. Well, that doesn't sound to me like...
So what?
Man, that doesn't sound to me like a guy who's involved in anything, but have maybe heard...
What emails are you talking about? Are you talking about the DNC emails?
The entire Russian case is always centered around what we talked about the first time. Everything we said turned out to be true. And it's about the emails that traveled from the DNC. So starting off at the top of the complaint where Mark left off, okay, it says this. It says, it was reported that Russia, see, special counsel would not commit, that's a disclaimer at the top, because they know that they cannot and never will prove that Russia hacked the DNC. They did not. We've maintained that the entire time. But it's funny.
We've always believed that somebody on the inside did this.
Yeah, it's a chuck. Well, we're going to announce that today. But it's a chuckle that between the 3 of us, at least, that, there's no possible way that anybody, the Russians, the Trump campaign, Roger, agent, they have nothing to do with it. But at the top, it's a chuckle between the 3 that special counsel comes out in the indictment of Roger Stone and says, it was reported that the Russians hacked so-and-so because and you read those lines at the top of that's us, guys. They will not commit because they know that we're on to them, and it's very simple. Let's start out with the top tier logic and how Roger's going to win this case. In my left hand, I have the DNC. In my right hand, I have WikiLeaks. Now listen, DNC gave the emails to WikiLeaks. Now, if any man can, what they say before you get married, if any man has this, is let him speak now or hold his peace. Speak now or hold your peace, because there's no one that has come up and introduced any verified, not even innuendo, any individual between those two parties. Now,
well, they're trying to argue that WikiLeaks is the Soviet Union, or old Soviet Union, or Russia, which is absurd. WikiLeaks is not Russia.
Yeah, that's the biggest batch of nonsense I've ever heard. Listen, we have the DNC on the left side, and then we have WikiLeaks on the right side. We have Christopher Steele on the left side. We have the dossier right here. All of those entities, and you can find this out, you read through the report, which will be published on Blunt Force Truth. All of these entities were hired by and engaged by the FBI, Comey's FBI, right? Think about it. The Russians, let's call them the fake Russians, went after Caputo, went after Stone, tried to engage them, tried to offer them stuff. They were hired by the FBI. Christopher Steele, hired by the FBI. The Russian lawyer at the Trump Tower, hired by the FBI. CrowdStrike, hired by the FBI. And we could go on all day. All of these little news stories that you've seen popped up have all been operatives of the FBI. So this is nothing more than Shakespeare, right? It's Shakespeare is what it is. And every little episode from Trump Tower and everything was all staged by the FBI. So back, I digress a second. And here's the deal. This is not about election jealousy. It's about a stock deal gone wrong in Silicon Valley, okay? If you look at, we pulled the document. I've made sure that there's no conjecture in this report we've issued today for Blunt Force Truth. If you look back to 2013, in 2013, James Comey, or was it, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I am getting older now. I have a memory problem, because it was Mueller that gave that CrowdStrike company a $150,000 contract. Now, those aren't Jerry Lewis.
You're talking about the what was the deal? Oh, come on, help me here.
Well, in 2013, there was a contract awarded.
For what?
For consulting services.
Oh, really? That was it?
Yeah, consulting services to company none other than CrowdStrike. Now think about this.
I was
guys.
thinking uranium. I'm sorry. I thought that he might have something to
the
do with
uranium one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
this is different than that.
well,
Okay.
that's why we started that motorcycle game. This gang, the Sons of Arthritis, which it's very popular. So, anyways, the point is, and here's the deal. If you guys look, and we've all seen it, you have recall, Chuck has recall, I have recall, but maybe the general audience might not remember these details. But on national television, James Comey, under oath, said, well, we never got access to the servers because some high-class firm was in charge, some private DNC firm, some highly regarded firm, some random firm handled it. But what he doesn't tell you is he knows that firm very well, and that the FBI had participated in an investment scheme. Now, here's how it goes. At that time in 2013, Mueller was the head of the FBI. And 2013, a $150,000 contract was issued to CrowdStrike. And then Eric Schmidt and the boys from CrowdStrike went over and defrauded the Google Capital Ventures board of directors. Now, come on, let's talk English to the audience for a minute. If you're a startup guy and you're like Elon Musk in the making and you're deep in Silicon Valley and you've invented something and people say this has teeth, this is sexy technology, and you're on the doorstep and you get picked up by this guy, this manipulator guy, Eric Schmidt, and you're like, oh my Lord, we have Google, they're going to invest in us, right? And you get all the way down to the 1 yard line and he says, I'm sorry, boys, the board will never go for it. And you say, what? And all those dreams of the fishing boat and everything else you may be thinking of are crushed to the ground in a minute, okay? And they tell you this, and I've been there because I sold a company to Nielsen for $4 million, okay? And I'm going to tell you exactly how it goes. They say, you need this little thing in this VC game. You need this little thing called revenues, and they had none. Now, the stock market's fueled on two things, profit, revenues, and good news. Right? So they did both. And they said, hey, to the CEO, they said, hey, I want you to go to your FBI buddies and just get me anything. Get me that the FBI is going to use CrowdStrike and make it a huge company and it's going to be great. And so what they did is Mueller made himself a little retirement plan. Don't need a paper, not when you're into stuff like that. And he gave them what we call, I don't know, for our viewers, it's G-rated, but the point is it's a BS contract. And what it is $150,000. Now, after they get that little buddy deal from the FBI, Google gives them $300 million, okay? So now they've got $300 million, and all of a sudden, they cancel the crowd. They're so great that after the board of directors votes and gives them the $300 and they get a $3 billion evaluation with 10 views on their YouTube channel, by the way, still, they cancel their contract. They fire them. So they fired CrowdStrike. But then after the firing, and here's the big problem, James Comey raises his hand and says, under oath, I vouch for them. I vouch for them so much that all 17 intelligence agencies are going to back me up on this, on my word alone, based on their word. But he had fired them a year earlier. And the reason he had fired them is to create distance between them, right?
So Michael, go ahead, Chuck.
CrowdStrike was the group that was called in by the DNC to go through all the computers and do all that kind of stuff. Is that right?
Yes, but remember, a year before, this is funny, but a year before they retained him, so they make it look like this. They make it look like CrowdStrike was hired and James Comey was trying to get in and get access to the server. He's trying to get in, he's got access to the server. James Comey had been calling the DNC, evangelizing for CrowdStrike for a year, warning that Russian hackers were coming. And this ties into two things. It ties into the agenda of Eric, the agenda of the HRC campaign, but really it ties into what CrowdStrike was and why they were attractive. They were attractive because a guy, a lock-picking teenager guy that rolled out into the military, straightened out his life, Robert Johnston, this guy discovered Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear on every case he worked. Every case he worked. Joint Chiefs of Staff came in. Guys,
Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear.
Well, that's the alleged Russian hacking files. These are the alleged, they call them, and by the way, those Russian sounding names, this is a little bit of Hollywood again on their part. There's no Cozy Bear and Fancy. CrowdStrike made it up. It's APT 28 and 29.
And they did this, Michael, through porn sites, right?
Well, we're gonna get to that part.
So let me wrap up the first part for a second here. Essentially, what happened here was a form of a pump and dump.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a company. I've got nothing. I have no business. I want to go sucker a bunch of people to invest a fortune in my company.
Nothing to do with election jealousy whatsoever.
I go to my friends at the federal government. So I go to Comey, I go to Robert Mueller, and I say, look, you guys, give me a contract. Just write me a contract for anything. I don't care what it is. Call it consulting.
And they helped them defraud the board of directors at Google Capital Ventures and Eric Schmidt, the CEO of them. He still has a board of directors to answer to, but he gave them the answers to the test. And the guys in the brass at the FBI at that time said, give this guy his $150,000. And they're looking at him. Think about who this guy is. He's a retired FBI guy that has struck it Silicon Valley rich. So anyways, they conspire together to defraud the board of directors at Google Capital. What happens? Is there any paper trail from that? Well, they fired the CEO of Google Capital Ventures, Eric Schmidt, who was the platform creator of Hillary Clinton's campaign. And they even changed the name from Google Capital Ventures to Alphabet Capital.
Alphabet. Yeah. So I go into Google. So Chuck, I take now I've got this $150,000 contract, which on the surface
doesn't sound like much.
Doesn't sound like much. But what's important is it's from the FBI.
Right.
So I walk in, I'm like, look, guys, I've got a brand new consulting company here. I've just opened my doors, and already contracts from the FBI are flowing into our doors.
Lucrative. It's great. And the board revotes and gives them the 3 tranches of $100 million apiece. So they're in knee deep with Eric, right? So Eric can do as he wishes. But there's another thing. He doesn't really have to say, hey, guys, go in and fake this hack.
Now, let me give Chuck something here that'll make sense for Chuck.
Okay.
Chuck, this is the equivalent of, I just wrote a bad movie deal. I just wrote a terrible movie script, but I get a big celebrity to agree to be in my movie, and now I go looking for money.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's bankable.
And you get the money.
So the FBI is the Brad Pitt in this story.
I was going to say Brad Pitt too, but they get some money, and all of a sudden, Brad Pitt drops out, but the production.
So this was all.
On.
So the purpose of this whole thing was doing nothing but making money from Mueller and Comey, and what was the purpose of it?
Well, it's got a twist. Why? Now you got to flip it around the chairs at the round table. You got to flip it around. You got to say, what?
So we got the FBI, we got Google, and in the middle of that we have
Google Capital.
Google was the mark.
Right.
Yeah.
The CEO wasn't. He's the guy.
Correct.
He's the guy who used Google Capital Ventures money to slingshot this tool, this golf club that he would pull later on a different type of hole. But keep in mind, he knew what type of Callaway he was pulling. He knew because this company was famous for one thing, fabricating Russian hacks. Okay, and we can get into that, but so anyways, so you look at him and he's like, why would you take this worthless company that they have no revenues, they need to BS the FBI to get a thing, go take it back into the board of directors, finally get the $300 million, get the $3 billion evaluation. And then you look at Eric and you're like, what do you want these losers for? It's a failing company. But that company at that time was known for Russian hacking fabrication.
Now let me explain another thing here real quick. When you look at this deal, Chuck, I go into Google Ventures. I ask for a couple $100 million. Look, the FBI is rushing in to do business with us. On the Google side, there's 2 things going on. One, I'm looking at this saying, well, this looks like this could really explode and we could make some money. But the second thing is I'm saying, wait a minute, this gives me influence into the FBI.
That's right.
Because now I'm the major investor in a company that the FBI is chasing.
And the FBI brass is in knee deep in it. Yeah, you got it. And I actually think because it's really localized to a few guys, Strzok, McCabe, and Comey. And I think that it's possible, and let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I believe that McCabe is dirty, Strzok is dirty, and Comey politically motivated, but ended up in the middle of it. You understand?
Yeah. So what's the next step? What's the twist?
Okay. The next thing is so now they get all this money, and they realize that this guy, the guy who discovered the Russian hack, his name's Robert Johnston. Okay. This guy went out and he did the Joint Chiefs case. What do you know? It's Russian hackers, and out of 1,000, listen, anybody who's played bingo should get this, okay? There's 1,000 or more polymorphic variants of the AP, Advanced Persistent Threat, and as you said earlier, Mark, it's a bunch of porn scripts. This is not a Russian GRU cyber weapon. That's ridiculous. It's a bunch of porn scripts. We'll get into that in a bit. But the point is they went in, and once they did that, okay, he went from the Joint Chiefs case over to the Ukraine howitzer case. What do you know? You've got Russian problems, and they're making money. They were dragging those Russian files all over DC, right? It was a sweetheart money file for them. They go in, they're going to come out and say, bad transmission. It's the Russians again, APT 28 and 29. Now, let's do some math.
So this is all made up.
It's all made up, okay? So the next thing is they have 1,000 APT polymorphic variants, right? What's the chances that these two lottery balls or bingo balls are going to be pulled every time they draw a number? 28, 29, next case, 28. Russian, 29, Russian. We're talking OJ DNA odds. There's no way.
So they're chumming the water in Washington. They're just chumming it.
Those APT cozy fuzzy bear stupid files, they are not Russian GRU cyber weapons. They're a bunch of porn scripts that they found. And this Robert Johnson, who has no cyber skill set whatsoever, this guy has them in his pocket. He shows in, he saunters in over here. CrowdStrike sends him someplace else. He comes in. The guy has no cyber skills. Admitted by his own word, he has no skills. He's a guy that runs McAfee, sticks the disk in. This guy doesn't know anything. And he goes in, what do you know? It's the Russians. Then he goes over Ukraine howitzer case. Oh, it's the Russians. Eric knew what was going to happen. Eric knew these guys were crooked, and they were going to come out and say the Russians, right? And they come in, and what do you know? AP 29. But there's something wrong with that, because this DNC case, APT won't do what they say it will do. It will not fly across the room, and that brings us to our next section. I have heard no less than 1,000 times on mainstream media about, show us the server. Let's see the server. Where's the server? Well, the FBI didn't get access to the server. There is no server. You got to listen to the fine details. Now, Comey has testified to this. This was a phishing scam. That's when they send you an email. It says, you're in danger, your computer's in danger, change your password now. Now, that's a phishing campaign. That's when somebody sprays out a bunch of emails and hopes for the best. There's no hacking skill set. A 13-year-old could do it, just like John McAfee said. We agree on that. And that's the deal. So anyways, when you go in and you say it's a spear phishing attack, a guy like me with my skill set, I go, hey, wait a minute. There's only how many employees? Let's double it. 300 employees. They're saying 127 individuals involved. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's do the math. If you had hacked a server and you got 300 people with email accounts at DNC Mail, right? Do you really think that you're going to convert 7 out of 300? The typical conversion ratio for a irresponsible, hey, dude, give me your password attack is 1 in 7,000.
Right. That's about to say. I mean, other than that, or the entire DNC were sitting on porn sites every day.
So we have Comey and everyone testifying, look, this was a phishing attack. I go, okay, you want to play phishing? Daddy likes to play. Let's play phishing, Comey. And it's a 1 in 7,000, 1 in 3,000 conversion ratio. You're trying to tell me that it's 7 out of 300 conversion ratio? That means 7 idiots out of 300 said, sure, I'll go change my password. Right? It's the idiot factor is just never exists. It doesn't exist.
All right, but Michael, wait a minute. These are Democrats.
Yeah.
I don't want you to want you to shortchange the idiot factor here.
So now a guy like me is highly suspicious so they said they committed. So first of all, there's still people on MSNBC, NBC, everything, and they're saying the server, the DNC server, but they didn't listen. They didn't even bother to listen to the testimony when he said, well, they got in by sneaky means. And well, what's sneaky means? Well, it was a phishing attack where they send you an email and they ask you to give the password. And I said, okay, they've said it. Now we have a big problem because he's just committed to a type of game that is 1 in 7,000 and trying to convince us now that at this little DNC thing, that 7 out of 300 said yes.
Now, wasn't Podesta's password?
Yeah, but that's a different site. Yes, it is. And that's a different case. We're saying it all centers around the DNC, right? And we got Podesta too. But the thing is it just cannot be. Anybody who's listening to us and knows the math, you cannot convert 7 idiots per 300 that says, okay, I'll give you my password. It's just not going to happen. So
it defies the laws of averages. I will agree with you that it defies the laws of average.
There's just things in the news today defy the law of averages. Give me a break.
Up is down and down is up. But the bottom line is we know, guys, everything we said in the beginning, we've just gone and checked off the boxes to say, all right, how'd they do it and why'd they do it and can we prove it? There's no way. Okay, now we have a real problem because now that they said that there was no data intrusion by the Russians, none. And they've said that it was a password breach, and we know that the conversion numbers for password phishing attack are way out of scope. Way out of scope. Now you got a problem. And the only question I want to know is who was in the building in the time slice that the emails were there.
So who was in the building? Do we know?
CrowdStrike. And then we look at another fact. We look at on page 218 of Donna Brazil's book. CrowdStrike came in and they performed the remediation and they destroyed 300 hard drives. So I brought something. It's show and tell day here at Blunt Force Truth. I brought the Napster hard drive. Can you see that, guys? Let's see. This is how you treat evidence. There's a place where you get handcuffed to it. And if you open it up, you can see how we treat a hard drive, right? It's pretty impossible to open here. And let's just open it right up. And here we go. And I'll have to hold it back and show you. Now, you would have 300 of these.
Right. That's a hard drive sitting in the middle there.
Right.
That's one of those devices, people, that Hillary beats with hammers.
That's right. So we had 300 of these destroyed by CrowdStrike. Now, let me tell you something. Anybody who's ever worked on a big time case, They have law enforcement there. You don't just run in and go, I'm a computer guy, give me a gun and a badge. It doesn't work that way. There's law enforcement that handles that. So when you make your findings as a computer researcher or advisor on a case, then the guys with the badges and the guns show up. And they have extreme pedigree, extreme trust level, long time in law enforcement, and they handcuff you to a side of the hard drive, and you go check it into a bank vault. And everyone who touched or interacted with that hard drive, and there are B for B copies, but bit for bit copies
So all protocol is thrown aside. Every bit of protocol is thrown aside. And on top of that, they destroy the evidence. Now, let me ask you a question. Has anyone asked, why did you destroy the hard drives? And is there an answer?
Well, there is an answer for that. And this is my opinion. I don't speak for anybody, but this is my opinion. I believe that when they indicted Roger Stone, they opened themselves up to finally put the Russian hack on trial, and that a court of law will see it. But wait a minute, will they? And why wouldn't they? So here we have them again at the top of that indictment. Read it very carefully. It was reported that the Russians blah, 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 you know?
All right, so let me ask you a question.
They won't commit to it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this whole scam with CrowdStrike, with Google, with Mueller, with Comey, this is all pre-Trump. Now Trump comes into the picture. Did they just identify, look, we can blame him for all this and we can hide our bad deeds? So is Trump are they just trying to make the president into the fall guy to hide what they did? Or have they manipulated this and designed it purposely to go after the president?
No, this was a reusable widget. They had been over at the Joint Chiefs and made money. They'd been over at the Ukraine howitzer case and made money.
When you say they,
CrowdStrike.
CrowdStrike, okay.
Yeah, they'd done cases, and there were nefarious activities alleged at all of them. And they got caught fabricating Russia on the Ukraine howitzer case. They had to print a retraction. They were caught faking Russia and the whole thing. So they've gone down in flames before, and they've already been caught fabricating Russian hacking and this and that. So they are a reusable widget. And that's the thing. And the other thing is, you got to understand, they claim that they can look at a file and tell you who owns it. It's called threat attribution. It's a lie. I could put 20 files out in front of them. I guarantee you they cannot. What they did was they looked and they claimed that they found a file, and for them to perform what is called a Yara match, they have to find that file present in their database. That means they had it in their hand when they walked in the DNC. We know that too. So they had APT on them. Cozy Bear, Fancy Bear.
So my question here is, when we started this investigation with Mueller looking for Russians,
mm-hmm.
Did anyone at any time ever believe that the Russians hacked us, or A, was it just meant to get the president, or B, was it meant to hide all these bad dudes and we can bury the president at the same time?
Well, there was a segue point, and you got to understand the segue point. In the DNC primaries, Hillary was getting pounded, and you got to look at the Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton running up to the general election. And I've watched and rolled back the footage, and he's like, I don't want to hear any more about your damn emails and this and that. It was humiliating. Can you think her team and how they would respond running up to the general debates And she knew she was going to win. She had the stipend. She was running the DNC. She is the DNC at that point in time. And she's coming up to the general. She knows she has 3 debates that she's going to have to go up against Trump. And he's going to talk about those emails. They needed a computer scandal that was bigger, that showed everybody sins now and then. Everybody has a thing. And by the way, it wasn't just me and an email server in a laundromat or a basement. It was Godzilla. It was the Russians. No one wants to say the copier boy brought somebody down because that's not fitting of a commander in chief. She had a big computer problem, a credibility and a competency problem. She needed a Russian scandal. And
so what about all these Russians that Mueller has indicted? I mean, do they have any connection to anything, or did he open up the Russian phone book and start doing darts?
That is an excellent follow-up to our original. You know what? And that fills a big hole. 13 Russians in a partridge in a pear tree. The entire election, we have something now called social networking, okay? And the entire election, the world was talking on Facebook. The world was talking on Twitter. Okay. Now I happen to know something about big campaigns. I happen to know something about purchasing ads on Facebook. I also happen to know what 13 Russians, and I laughed. I was on the ground crawling, gasping for air as I watched Rod Rosenstein read off these indictments. And he said, "We have indicted 13 Russian individuals for posting memes and naughty things, and and they had," and we'll do the little stupid Dr. Evil there, where he goes, "hundreds." Now look, man, my 15-year-old could go on Fiverr and buy 250,000 Twitter accounts to use for whatever. So if this is the Russian GRU, they're not as good as our Halo 2 players over here on Microsoft Xbox. It's such a joke to think that 13 tweeting, dancing Russians, and here's the other part, and they also attended a rally for Trump. And on the same day, another rally for Clinton.
And what's the point?
And they also went to Coney Island, and they had a dog. They're 13 tweeting, dancing Russians. If you've run an account and you're going to have an influence, you had better come with a lot more than 13 tweeting Russians. It was
well, look, if you break all of it down, and you say the Russians were behind this whole thing, which they weren't. They being, Democrats and Comey and DOJ, FBI, they're all behind it. So they actually achieved what the Russians could only hope to achieve.
Exactly.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then they blame the Russians while they're achieving what they want.
If you run, they said they spent $100,000. I have clients that drop $500,000 and can't kick a dent in a can. But you cannot. Of course not. You cannot change a Trump Rolex into a Clinton Timex, or change a Yankees fan to a Dodgers fan with all the Facebook money. It's just not that type of vehicle. Can you raise awareness with the base? Can you consolidate the base? Can you make a candidate a little bit more lovable? These are social influencers. But $100,000, that's like going to Vegas nothing. With $10 and thinking you're gonna high roll it for several weeks. You won't make it several minutes.
Michael. It's one thing to break this down intellectually, mechanically. There's a whole political side to this. Mm-hmm. Where do you, in our short brief time we have left, where do you see this finally going? Will the American people be swayed by this? Is there something that's going to come out that's going to completely upset the landscape politically for Trump, for whoever, or will people be held accountable?
Well, first of all, run through a few things. The goofy candidates, Pocahontas and all these things, they don't intend on beating Trump. They intend on beating Pence. These equations are all factored on running against Pence. The second thing is I believe that they have tried a number of Kavanaugh-like tactics. You know, it's from grab the so-and-so through the election and all this, and Trump played golf while somebody starved in Africa. They've tried it all. But this Roger Stone thing, he's really close. A lot of people know about, but this is the main thing. This is the battle. So if they get Roger Stone, I mean, keep in mind, I feel bad about it because Manafort was partners with Roger. And look what happened to him. Right. But Manafort's charges were way through the roof. I mean, they had teeth, and Roger's not so much. I believe that Roger is being tried in an unfair venue of D.C. I mean, come on.
Is there a fair venue in D.C.?
Yeah, so they should, I hope that they can get a move a venue. But, and that's another thing. I just think that it's all about Roger, what happens to him. And
so what's the timeline in this? Where that's another thing that everybody keeps asking. Is Mueller close to finishing up? Is it going to go on till just before the 2020 election? Will it go through the election cycle? I mean, we're in the election cycle now, whether you like it or not. So where does this go? And how does it end?
Well,
does it?
I believe that we will all be very lucky. Look, I love President Trump. I want him to be in for 2 terms. I want us to, get his agenda through. And fair and square, he won the election fair and square. They're ready to reelect him. But we don't elect people by impeaching them in and out of office. And there's nothing that Trump's done that deserves impeachment. But think of what he could do if everybody just got off his back. I think he's a pretty darn good president.
Well, he's been fighting the establishment in the Republican Party as well as the Democrats. Yeah. So we all know that. I mean, my gosh, Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, and it just goes on and on. It's deep and wide. There are probably 40 conservatives in the House, and there may be 3 or 4 in the Senate. And that's his base as far as government. And then there are all the people who support him on the outside, and it's us.
I wanted to say something, speaking of Mitch McConnell and the base. I believe we won the midterms, okay? Mm-hmm. We had a record number of retirement, and we picked up in the Senate. So the impetus is Trump approval rating up, gains in the Senate. We catch a lady down in Florida cheating, right? And then we have these, the retirements and everything. But then we have these districts. I believe that there was cheating going on. And how would they do it? Why not the Senate? We picked up in the Senate because state races are...
Can't vote harvest them.
Yeah. But just flipping little districts and picking and choosing your 30 districts, I just feel it. I know that there was cheating in there. I know he did really good. It's very rare that somebody has gains over here on the hard to fudge races and is losing things that could be if they wanted to spend that kind of money and do it. And we caught him cheating out other places. So I believe that there wasn't any blue wave or anything like that. I think they'll flip it in 2020.
Do you think, let me ask a question, Mueller, just your opinion, is Mueller a good guy or a bad guy?
Dirty cop. That's it. One dirty cop, my friend.
So what should we do with Mueller?
Well, miniature golf is out of the question.
These guys are so insulated and so protected they can do just about what they want.
No, I don't believe anybody's going to be uranium one or lock her up. I don't think it's just not the way Washington rolls. I think that everybody's going to have their day in the Inquirer, and hopefully no blood will be spilled politically. And everybody goes on about their life. But boy, I'll tell you what, this is about the most violent, hard differences. I mean, if you walk down the street, you're wearing a Trump cap, you could be hit with a baseball bat.
Yeah, somebody could take a swing at you. That's right.
Yeah.
In your opinion, are we looking at a internal coup?
This is what's been going. I believe that's what's going on right now. Yeah, sure. This is a coup. I mean, I always thought, when they went into the Middle East, and they're going, and they're ripping down the Saddam things, and they're hanging them, and they're hunting Gaddafi down like a dog, and this and that. And I go, be careful what you do, Mr. Arab Spring, because it's coming to a theater near you. And now we see, it started a few years back with Occupy, and then after the election, the post-election riots and this and that. But be careful once you start dethroning presidents by the dozen, regardless of geographical location, but Saddam and all those guys that they took out, and now they're trying to pull down General Lee's. Oh, they did pull down all those statues. That happened here. People are acting out. So once you show them that it's a country can be taken out with iPhones and Toyota trucks, like I said, coming to a theater near you. So I'd like to see less and less of that. I think that when someone gets elected president, we respect it. Certainly we were gentlemen during the Obama years. We didn't like it, but we weren't, throwing things and acting out.
Oh, it's like the Tea Party. I mean, we clean up after ourselves and we don't leave trash behind. It's who we are. It's what we do. It's our signature, quite frankly, and very few people respect it.
And
Thank you, Michael.
We didn't dress up as vaginas either.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's an odd name, vagina. Yeah.
Michael Guy, thanks for being with us on Blunt Force Truth. If you enjoyed today's show, please go to iTunes, Stitcher, iHeart. Leave us a 5-star review. Chuck, any last words for us, buddy?
What a great show. Really very eye-opening. We appreciate your expertise, Michael, that only you have.
Thank you so much.